Just several things I want to highlight. Not only did Miss Diaz shoot Christopher Jones in the back, she left him to rot, Your Honor. Not only tried to convince his family and friends that he was still alive through her texting them on his cell phone, she also tried to convince.
Court is calling 2020 CR 11865, State of Texas versus Mary Jesse Diaz. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Alan Jackson for the state.
Defense?
Charles Buck and Jim Tochi for Ms. Diaz.
And are you Ms. Diaz?
Yes, Your Honor.
You entered a plea of no contest on July 16th to the offense of murder. According to the plea bargain agreement, punishment is to be assessed at a cap of 25 years in the prison. There are no applications, and of course, for murder, you're not eligible for probation. Have both parties had a chance to review the PSI report?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge.
Any objections to the PSI report?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
No objections, Judge.
All right. Any witnesses from the state or the defense?
Not from the state, Your Honor. We just have argument.
No witnesses, Judge.
All right. Then the court will hear argument. State, I'm
Yes.
assuming you're requesting that I hit the cap?
Yes, Your Honor. We feel that the 25 is already taking kind of evidence and other things into consideration. But especially after, if you read the PSI and you've had a chance to review the report, to review the autopsy, there's just several things I want to highlight. Not only did Miss Diaz shoot Christopher Jones in the back, she left him to rot, Your Honor. She left him alone in that house for the better part of a month. And there's evidence that she returned at least once, but likely more. She took his phone, his wallet, his watch, his dog, and his car. She used his car, she drove it around, she spent his money, she racked up his calls, she tried to collect rent from one of his friends, she tried to sell his equipment, and in that event, she got the murder weapon stolen. She not only tried to convince his family and friends that he was still alive through her texting them on his cell phone, she also tried to convince the police he was still alive. She impacted his entire family, his mother, his sister, and his aunt, and the children that he had only recently connected with. And so 25 to us is the only thing that even came close to getting any sort of justice, Your Honor.
All right. Defense.
Head Judge. Excuse me. On behalf of Ms. Diaz, we believe the PSI does discuss quite a few things that I would ask the court to consider. First, regarding the PSI, it talks about her children, and it says she has 4. She actually has 6, just so the court knows. Factually, there are some inaccuracies in the PSI. She has 6 children rather than 4. It does discuss also some things that happened to Ms. Diaz as she grew up, and some of the difficult things she faced as a young person. Now, addressing what happened on this day, and the state talks about the fact that the 25 takes into account all the factors that led up to what happened on this day, and perhaps it takes into account some of it, but Ms. Diaz, in her description of what happened that day, you know, she comes clean and she tells the court exactly what happens that day, and she's correct and she's truthful with the court in the PSI. And one of the things I think the court, you know, the state wants you to believe that she just left him there and did nothing regarding the police, but in fact, she tells the court through the PSI that she thought the police had been notified through these people, because she goes immediately and tells somebody what happened. And she tells through the PSI, she says, I thought the police had been notified. And if you read the stipulations, you'll see that in fact, the police were notified. The police were called and told, and they did nothing about it. So while Mary did not call the police, she told people what happened, and those people called the police and told the police. And then for whatever reason, the police didn't believe anything about it. And so when I think it was Vanessa and her roommate or her wife, or whoever it was, when they called the police, for whatever reason, nothing happened. Now, the problem that Mary then ran into is as time passed, you know, it just, you know, it became more and more difficult, and it's kind of snowballed on Mary. And certainly she should have come forward, and she didn't. And she realizes, as she stands here today before the court, she realizes she certainly should have come clean. But as time passed, it became more and more difficult, and she made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, which led her to make the one decision that, that perhaps was her one good decision, that was to accept responsibility and come before this honorable court today and say, Judge, I'm here. I accept responsibility. You can see I don't think you've seen a PSI that is as accepting of responsibility as this one is. She tells you exactly what happened. She tells you why it happened. She tells you what was going on between the two of them and everything. And the good thing, if there is any good thing from Mary's version, is it's completely supported by the stipulated evidence. All the trouble that she says they were going through together is supported by the stipulated evidence. The fact that she tried to do something right after it happened in the first aid she tried to administer is supported by the stipulated evidence. So as she stands before you, she is accepting responsibility. She understands the court has to make this decision. She wants the court to know that she understands she's hurt many people. She's made a community feel unsafe. She's caused so much emotional stress to all the people that know about the case. She's done things. She's hurt his family. She's hurt her family. She's hurt everyone touched by this. But she can't change that. She's by accepting responsibility, she's hoping people will see that she's doing everything she can to make it right, even though it's years too late. And then when we talk about years, in this case, we're talking about a cap of 25 years. And the court, has the ability to consider, obviously a cap of 25 means 5 to 25. And we're certainly not thinking by any stretch the court should consider anything between 5 and 25. The court shouldn't. This is a murder case. This is the taking of someone's life. But we're asking the court to perhaps consider something between 20 and 25 years. And I would ask that the court read the stipulated evidence. I would compare it to her statement of the facts. I would also ask the court to consider the fact that she spent 1 year in jail and then 3 years on full house arrest. She didn't ask to go work. She didn't ask.
So what does she mean if you turn to page 11?
Yes, I was going to get to that part.
All right, if you can tell me
about
what
the fair part.
Yes.
Yeah. So when she was asked about that, I asked her about that. I said, Mary, this sounds terrible. And she says, Charles, what I was trying to say was, when this happened, he had been, our situation, his and hers, was a volatile, abusive situation, and I had to make a decision on what to do, how to react. And I reacted in a way that turns out I had to make a decision that at the end wasn't fair to me. And in other words, she doesn't mean that this isn't fair. She means the result, she made a decision that in the end, the result wasn't fair to her, and that she was placed in a situation where she had to make a decision it wasn't fair to make her make that decision. In other words, he placed her in the untenable situation where you've got to decide to make this decision. And it's not fair to put a person in a situation where you've got to choose either I'm going to do something terrible to you, or you have to do something terrible to me to keep that from happening to you. And that's not a fair decision to put another person in. And that's what she meant. She certainly does not mean that it's not fair that she's before this honorable court. So, and because I asked her about that, I've cringed just like I'm sure you did when you read that. But that she's not inferring or not telling this honorable court that it's not fair that she's here. It's certainly fair. She's here. And if it wasn't fair, we wouldn't be here. We'd be in trouble. Certainly, Mr. Tochi and myself, if we didn't think it was fair, we wouldn't have pled. We wouldn't be here. She understands, she accepts. What she meant was it's not fair to put a person in a position to have to make that choice. Hey, am I going to have to hurt you? Are you going to hurt me? And that's not fair to make a human make that decision. That's what she was trying to say on that day, not to you, but to Chris. And so that it was just an unfair position to put another person in. Thank you. So anyway, back to what I was saying is just when you make the decision, we're asking you to consider perhaps, even if it's 22 or 23 years, considering how she came clean in the PSI, and it's shown that in the stipulated evidence. She spent 1 year in the county jail. She spent 3 years on full house arrest. We believe that those factors all combined would justify a sentence of 22 to 23 years, and we ask the court to do that. Thank you.
All right, state.
Just briefly, Your Honor, as you always say, I feel the truth is always somewhere in between. We obviously don't have Mr. Jones' side of the story, and we now have Ms. Diaz's 4 years later. I believe it would probably be somewhere in between, Your Honor. And at the end of the day, it doesn't take away all that she tried to do to hide the truth. She had multiple occasions to tell the detectives the truth. She spent hours being interviewed and she still denied the truth. She also had contact with the police at least once, I think maybe twice, between when he was killed and when the body was discovered. And at no time did she say anything. She knew he hadn't been discovered and the police hadn't gone because she went to that house, which she talks about, the fact that she went back to the house and his body was still there and she took the dog. So, Your Honor, 25 is the only real option here.
Okay, and I remember, the steps, and I always reread steps. And part of the stipulations, it says that there were text messages sent that appear to be text messages to make it seem as though the complainant was still alive.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes, Your Honor. To multiple friends and family.
All right. Does anybody want to address that part of the stipulations?
No, like I said, at some point it snowballed and she got caught up in that.
All right. Anything else from either side?
No, Your Honor, just a reminder that we do have the Family for Victim Impact on Zoom.
All right. Ms. Diaz, I want you to know when the state makes an offer a cap of 25, always consider the full range, because when people offer a cap of something, so I consider 5 to 25. I don't automatically say, oh, I'm giving this person 25 or 24. I consider the entire range of punishment. Okay. And I understand what the defense is asking for. I understand what the state is asking for. And I appreciate both people being reasonable in what they are asking for. All right. As previously stated, the court is finding you guilty. The court will give you credit for any time served. The court will sentence you to 25 years in the prison. Did you review the document entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal with your attorney? Did you understand it and sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, because this is a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waived your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. Because this is a felony conviction, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons or ammunition. If you have a question over what a weapon or ammunition is, you'll need to speak to an attorney. And counsel, I see that there were other mentions of maybe potential toxic relationship, abuse, that type of things. I'll request for you the mental health unit or the therapeutic unit, but you'll have to request it as well, because I don't have any jurisdiction to force them to put you in specific programs, but that may be of help to you.
Yes.
Okay. And your defense counsel will explain more to you about how you could potentially maybe get in those programs. Is there?
Would the court consider granting her credit for the time she was on the monitor?
No. All right. And so we are off the record. My understanding, you have victim impact.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know I have a Husi SL112C
No,
and a Teresa?
Teresa for sure. Yeah, Teresa's the
I think other family, they have logged in just to be part of it,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure.
but Teresa's the
All right. All right. If you could please unmute.
But you'll have to request it as well, because I don't have any jurisdiction.
All right. Are you Miss Felix?
Yes, I am.
All right. And are you is she's the person who's going to give impact?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Diaz, victim impact is where family members may talk to you and tell you about how this has impacted their life. Always require that everybody treats everybody with respect, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Felix, you may begin.
Good morning. First of all, Honorable Judge Boyd, we, the surviving family of Christopher Lee Jones, would like to express our gratitude for the opportunity to give a small measure of how our family has been impacted. I was told we'd only have a few brief moments, and I've narrowed it down to 7-8 minutes, if that is at all possible.
Yes.
I would like to start with the statement from his mother, Leela Peterson. I'm sorry, I'm pretty nervous, obviously. Chris was my firstborn and only son. My hope was that his life would be blessed and anointed by God. That's why I named him Christopher, which is Greek, and Greek means bearer, carrier of Christ, anointed, and that he would always be protected by God. When he was growing up, my family and I tried to provide love and support to him in all he tried to do. Music was always his love and gift. As he ventured on his own, I pray that his name would be a self-fulfilling prophecy for his life. His music was beginning to show how special he was. He was completing his first CD, his tribute to God. Throughout the years he was away from home, we would always keep in touch, and he would tell me about his trials and blessings that led him to writing the songs on his CD. He thought he would finally be able to bless others with his songs. Then evil crept into his life in the disguise of a trusted friend and heartlessly ended his life. All the good memories have all the good memories have been replaced by sorrow, despair, and disbelief that this could happen. I will never again receive a call from him to let me know he's okay and share with me what has been going on in his life.
In this sentencing hearing, Mary Jesse Diaz stands before the court after pleading no contest to murder, with a plea agreement capped at 25 years in prison. The prosecution argues for the maximum sentence, emphasizing that Diaz shot the victim in the back, left his body undiscovered for nearly a month, stole his belongings, and attempted to deceive both his family and the police by sending messages from his phone. The defense acknowledges her actions but argues for a slightly reduced sentence, highlighting her difficult past, claims of a volatile relationship, her eventual admission of guilt, and partial attempts to seek help after the incident. After hearing both sides and reviewing the evidence, the judge finds her guilty and imposes the full 25-year sentence, stating that her actions, especially the deception and failure to report the crime, justify the maximum punishment under the agreement.